Hi there. In this video, we are going to look at payment and fintech infrastructure trio, Ripple, Onyxcoin, as well as Stellar. So let's dive into the charts and see what's going on. As usual, I'll cover the Wyckoff stage, potential price trend change, as well as key price levels. These are education content only, not financial advice. The weekly chart of Ripple is showing us that this week, once again, the bulls hammered the bear, was hammered by the bears pretty hard, pushing or squeezing the price back to the 1.35 yellow key level over here. The difference between this week and last week is that last week, the bears were able to push the price to below the key level, almost challenging the orange key level of 1.23. But then this week, the price didn't went that low. So when we get to the daily chart, we'll get to see the trend, what's actually going on and how does it look like. But from a big picture perspective, it hasn't changed much for Ripple. It's still at the early accumulation stage. So transiting from these blue tags to these orange tags. Okay, so the blue ones are the distribution cycle. I consider that finished already. It has entered the early accumulation stage or cycle, but whether the panic over stage has arrived yet, we still have to wait probably for a week or two. Okay, it may have reached that point already, but just to confirm. Okay, if that has finished, what comes next would be something we call automatic rally, meaning some people rush in to buy what they consider as a bottom, okay, pushing the price up to a point where we call the trading range top of the accumulation. So not necessarily the blue line over here, just an example. It can go higher sometimes and then got pushed back to close somewhere lower. The key thing I want to show you here is remember this long wick from this candle, okay, after a series of drop. A lot of times, when the price first entered the accumulation cycle, we see these kind of candles, very high volume. People were panic selling, while whales went in and buy. Okay? Remember this picture. Now, let's rewind, go back to 2022. Look at what's happened over here. A series of price declined, and eventually one candle with a long wick at the bottom. Okay, see that? And after that, there is like a short period of price decline before it settle in. That's the panic over stage. And there will be more tests. Okay, that's the automatic rally I mentioned. It set the trading range top, come back down, and retest that trading range top a couple of times for that instance. During this period of accumulation, it's basically the whales trying to check out the paper hands because some people bought the dip at a very low price. The whales let the price go up and then just to push it back down and scare some of those paper hands away until the point where nobody is willing to sell. And eventually the price will slowly go up, challenge multiple times at higher level, and then the whales pull it back, check out a little bit more paper hands, then eventually the price shoot to whatever peak or moon that cycle will lead to. Okay, so that's why I said we're still early. We haven't seen any of the shaking yet. Sometimes the accumulation cycle lasts shorter, finishing in a month or two. Sometimes it lasts much longer, like the one we have seen over here. Basically over a year or two. Okay, remember this big picture. While there may be a rally, expect some of the tests that would come to lower levels, especially if we look at what happened to October 10th last year. The tariff announcement day, it dropped to between the blue key level of 70 cents and the purple key level of 86 cents. So worst come to worst, if any of the world situation, maybe economic situation like employment, inflation, or national conflicts, wars, whatever that is, gets worse, people flee to other assets like chasing price surge in oil or gold or whatever that is, and liquidity flows outside of crypto, we see where Ripple can get to. Okay? I'm just telling you both the upside and downside so you're prepared. Here, the daily chart. The interesting thing is that after this mega drop and mega climb with crazy volume, the price is stabilizing or trading sideways between the yellow key level of 1.35 and the green key level of 1.54. It has been that way for like 3 weeks or even more. Okay, after the beginning of February, that crazy move towards the bottom of the downward channel. So you see this bottom of the downward channel, okay? What it is reaching now is to a point. Look at this over here. Even if it has moved to the right-hand side of this dashed line, it's still within the downtrend. However, if it does, that means it has moved to the stronger half of the downward channel, and it gets a higher possibility hitting one of these windows. What are these windows? These are potential price trend change confirmation dates. So take this as an example. Assuming the price continues to trade all the way till May, okay, when it gets closer to this triangle, only one of two scenarios can happen, okay? Just two options. Either it hits the ceiling of this downtrend and gets rejected, falls through the support line, the yellow line in this case, that confirms that the downtrend is going to continue for a while. Or it finds support, doesn't fall through, and breaks outside of the downward channel. That confirms the downtrend that started way back in July last year. Okay, it is finally over. We're not there yet. There was a chance back in January, but then it got heavily rejected. And now getting to this point where after falling through the center line, getting to the weaker half, let me pull a box over here. This points to the 20th of March, just in less than 2 weeks' time. It's going to get to this triangle, and that is going to confirm whether the price is going to trade back to the stronger half, or is it going to get rejected and seek lower levels. Okay, that's Ripple. There are a lot of economic data coming out soon, so that's going to determine the direction. From a volume standpoint, it has been declining over the past 3 days, but overall is pretty much consistent, just average volume. If we look back all the way to mid-February, the entire period is pretty much stagnant, except one day where the price tried to surge back to the stronger half of the channel, but got heavily pushed or hammered back to below the green key level. All right, so no big commitment from the whales or whoever playing this game, okay? Just average volume range bound. Now, let's move to Stellar. The big picture, similarly, Stellar is at the early stage of accumulation, and maybe it's getting over the panic over stage pretty soon. Okay, we kept seeing these buying the dip activities, okay? While the hammering down, okay, you see these with candlestick body at the lower quarter of the candle with long wicks from the top. Those are basically the bears pushing the price down, and indeed, they succeeded. All right, but getting to this round, we see wicks from both ends, meaning stronger support has been found. And the price currently is trying to stabilize between the two blue key levels, 13 cents 80 and 15 cents 70. All right, even though it's slightly trending lower. We'll get to that when we get to the daily chart to look at like the detailed trend. The big picture, similar to Ripple, we're looking forward to see the automatic rally. It may happen anytime soon, especially if the war in the Middle East kind of ease out, and then the economic data that comes out from the US isn't pretty shocking, then that's the time where a rally would happen. But remember what I said, right? The rally, what comes after that is, continuous testing of paper hands and diamond hands. So it can retrace and shake up and down until the point the whales, in my own interpretation, is that there will be a series of good news coming out in the next, a month or two. So if you look at these, that means, within that month, there are some good news or great news lining up so that they can sell the news to the people. So they will FOMO in, pushing the price to a crazily high level. Okay, once they see that opportunity, they will let the price go. Okay, think about this, right? If you foresee a series of bad news coming out, there's no point letting the price go up, right? Because it just won't sustain the rally. So they're looking for that opportunity. Okay, right now, it's still uncertainty more than, certain good news. Unless when we get to the point where the new US Fed chair comes in, there may be a higher chance of the news turning a little bit positive in terms of liquidity. Okay, not the world is getting a lot better. That's a different story. Okay, now the daily channel, downward channel, looks a little bit different, right? So Ripple is still at the lower or weaker half of the channel, but Stellar has been on the stronger half for about 3 weeks already, even though it's like slightly trending downwards. Okay, but to me, it's basically still trading kind of sideways. If we look at these two large candlesticks, okay, Ripple has something similar as well. Big drop with high volume, and then the next day, somebody scooped up a bunch of Stellar and pushed the price back to challenge the purple key level of 17 cents 20. So essentially, it has been range bound for an entire month between the light blue key level of 13 cents 80 all the way to 17 cents 20. The point that the price have been stopping around is where the price closed from this red candle. Okay, if we draw a line, you'll be able to see. Let me turn this yellow and enlarge this for you so it's a lot clearer. All right, so you see what happened, right? The red candle closed at this level of around 14 cents 60 or 70. And eventually when the price hits the purple, comes back down, it retested this level and subsequently a couple of times. And now we are back to retesting this level again. Yesterday, unfortunately it's weekend and it tends to have lower volume a lot of times because mostly it's only retail active in the week during the weekend. But when we get to the market open, when Asia wakes up, today's candle may look a little bit different. Okay, so the volume here is pretty low. That's what I want to point out. So if we try to think that, okay, the selling at least is kind of relaxing because the volume has dropped by half compared to the previous days, that may not be the true picture. We will only know when the week begins, for Asia and then eventually the rest of the world. All right. So be cautious. The price can go back to re-challenge the light blue key level, like what it did back in the beginning of February. All right, this is just an intermediate support that has been retested multiple times, not meaning it's going to be able to stay over there. Because if I draw another line, if you're into candlestick pattern analysis, some people would tell you this is potentially a descending triangle. And a descending triangle is going to lead to a lower price. But having said that, I don't 100% follow those because you always find exceptions. So it can be a reference, but don't trust it 100%. All right, that's for Stellar. Now we move on to Onyxcoin, XCN. Here, a little bit deeper into the accumulation cycle for XCN, we have seen the automatic rally setting the trading range top at the orange key level of 0.0096. The test is still going on. It has retraced back to the similar level as the panic over period back in December last year. What we need to see next in order to confirm that people or liquidity is coming back to XCN is something we call the sign of strength. What does it look like in the chart? Basically, a bunch of candlesticks continuing to go up to challenge the trading range top. Okay? Not only that, we need to see higher than average volume. So let's say the average is around this area. Let me make this larger. Okay, around here. We want to see something at least like this height. Okay, this is perfect. It may end up challenging the trading range top in just one candlestick, one weekly candle. Okay, sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks before it reaches those levels. Okay, if we look at here, you see what happened back in 2024, right? Initial automatic rally, and then eventually over 6 weeks with higher than average volume. All right, you see it's definitely much higher than the previous period. And eventually, let me shrink this back. Challenging this green line that the automatic rally reached or breached, got pushed back a little bit more, shaking out of paper hands, and eventually building the path to the next distribution. All right, so it is stepping into the middle stage of the accumulation, and that's what we need to see. The volume is still kind of staying at the low level, so whether or not it's going to test a lower level, let's get to the daily chart and take a look. Just 2-3 weeks ago, on the indicated date where the downward channel ceiling crosses the blue key level of 0.0051, the price broke out, and it has since continuing through sideways trend. Okay? Excuse me. So here, similar sense, like when we look at Stellar, there's an invisible intermediate level over here. You see, it has been retested many, many times over the past 2 weeks. However, there's still some selling force whenever the price tries to go above the 0.0051. So it's still the game. The whales are playing, checking out the paper hands. It's not over yet. If we extend the line further, you see this level has been tested many, many times in the daily time frame. All right. If people still or continue to lose confidence because of this global situation, the price may come down to retest the light blue key level of 0.004. Okay, that shouldn't surprise you. Turning from a sideways trend once again back to a downward trend. That can happen. Combined with the economic data that's going to come out from the US. Okay, home sales, inflation, but those inflation numbers are what happened in the past. But still, people would react to those. Okay, quite a number of other stuff coming in. So that's going to affect whether this trend, the sideways trend, is going to turn to a negative trend. Best, if those numbers aren't shocking and actually stabilizing the market, then the price can re-challenge or potentially gets above the blue line eventually. So going back to the big picture, that means when that happens, not that we can see it now because of this long wave coming from the top, it may take a little bit of time to build up the case for a sign of strength to show up. All right. So that's for the payments and fintech infrastructure. If you're interested to access these sessions 2 days earlier, join the other members now. Here's another video for you. Thank you.